All right, everyone. Good afternoon. It is 3:01. I suspect that we'll have a couple more people join us here in the next minute or so, but I think in the interest of respecting everybody's time, we'll get started. My name is Mike Gauthier. I'm the superintendent at Lake Mead National Recreation Area, and I really want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is a new set of community outreach meetings we're going to try to start hosting every quarter. We find they're a really good forum to share what's going on in the park, hear from the public, get questions, and really discuss the wide range of services and things that we do in the National Park Service on behalf of Lake Mead. And we really are excited for this opportunity. It's our first one. So we hope that you'll spread the word in the future and join us, and also share your ideas about what you'd like to hear us talk about. Today, we picked a wide range of topics, discussing some operational things, our volunteer program, some programs that happen behind the scenes, like our cultural resources and our museum program, for example, and then some updates on our facilities and projects. And we hope that you'll really be interested to hear what we've got going on and learn from our experts in the park and get to know them a little bit better. Before I really begin, I'd be remiss in not mentioning that there is a potential that there'll be a lapse of an appropriation. I just want to assure you that the park is preparing for that. We don't have direct guidance at this time, so there's not a lot I can say, but we are very sensitive to the importance of the park and the region economically and for the recreation purposes. So we're going to do all that we can to manage that as best we can in the event there is a lapse in appropriation. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of specific details to share with you today. We will in the next couple days be able to share more information. But in the meantime, though, regardless what's going to happen, the park will eventually open if it does shut down. And we have a lot of great work going on, and that's what we're here to talk about. So without too much further ado, I'd like to introduce Amy Warner. She's our branch chief of engineering. She's going to provide us an update on major park projects. One of the things that people often think about the park is the way that they recreate and play in the park. They may not understand that we've got a lot of complex programs and divisions that are doing really sophisticated professional work. And Amy's going to kick us off today talking about her experiences, their programs, and some of the projects that they've got going on. So, and if you have questions, one final reminder, we really encourage you to put your questions in chat. We'll answer them for you today. If you want to send us questions later, we'll take them and get you answers in writing. But if you ask questions in chat, no one else will see them, but we'll post them and then you can get your question answered. So don't be shy. We encourage you to speak up and share your thoughts. Thank you so much. And Amy, why don't you go ahead and start your program?
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate the introduction. So good morning, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amy Warner. I am the branch chief of engineering here at Lake Mead. And I'm really excited to share some of the projects that we have going on in the park. So, first, the experiences that our visitors have are truly made possible by the incredible staff here that we work with every single day. And I want to make a quick mention of our team, specifically here in the engineering department: Carl Bush, Sam Luke, and Naomi Fusen. These guys are our project managers and our engineers that are working on these projects day in and day out. They helped me put this presentation together, and what we accomplished truly wouldn't be possible without them. As we move through today, I'm going to share a brief facilities overview and some updates on 3 specific projects, along with future endeavors that are great for you guys to be on the lookout for. So moving into our facilities overview. Next slide, please. One thing that has continued to impress me during my time here at Lake Mead is really just the expansive and complex infrastructure that we have here at the park. We have 8 developed areas that can be thought of almost as like small towns, with amenities from campgrounds to our launch ramps and marinas, stores and motels. And we don't really think about all of the infrastructure that's needed to operate these small cities. In fact, most of these locations, the only utility we bring in is our electricity. So our utility services branch operates all of our drinking water systems as well as our wastewater treatment plants. And these systems are permitted and operated with all regulations, just like any municipality. And beyond our utility systems, we have extensive infrastructure, to name a few: the Allen Bible Visitor Center, entrance stations, our interagency communication center, which provides 911 dispatch services, as well as a nursery, which actually works to protect all of the regional genetic diversity of the native plants that we have here in our park. So with that, I want to move into our first project that we're going to highlight. We can move to the next slide. And that is the air conditioning and roof replacements at the Allen Bible Visitor Center. So our visitor center was built in 1966 and is a unique part of our historic fabric here at the park. But after almost 15 years of life and countless repairs, our air conditioning HVAC units, it's time to replace them. So we're going to ensure the building is comfortable and we can provide a nice, cool place during these peak summer days. We're going to reconfigure some of the ductwork, improve airflow, and actually add cooling to the restrooms. And we're going to pair this with a full roof replacement as well. This is going to make sure that we have a nice tight seal on this building, we have no leaks, and we're really protecting all of the incredible education that we offer here at our visitor center with our intern staff. Moving just a little bit down the road with our next slide is going to be our evaluation and stabilization of our historic railroad tunnel trail. So continuing with our historic theme, these tunnels were built in the 1930s and they allowed trains to access the Hoover Dam construction site. This trail is currently one of our most popular and widely used trails within the park. Given that these tunnels were created almost 100 years ago with the simple intention of construction access, they're really starting to show their age. And so these tunnels and the walls, the timber archways, are all inspected regularly. And these recent inspections have indicated that repairs and some stabilization efforts are needed in certain locations. So we're currently surveying and conducting geotechnical investigations at tunnel number 2. So that's if you start near the visitor center and you're walking towards the Hoover Dam, that's the second tunnel you'll encounter. And we'll be moving into design of these repairs and the stabilization methods in the spring. One interesting challenge that we're facing in these locations is that, not only are we trying to engineer the timber framing replacements, the rock stabilization methods, we also need to coordinate with the State Historic Preservation Office and make sure that the historical context of these structures are really maintained and preserved for future visitors to enjoy and learn about. And then lastly, moving out of the Boulder Basin area, I want to come full circle and talk about our utility systems again and the relocation efforts that have been undergoing at the water intake barges for Echo Bay and Colville Bay. So we can move on to the next slide. Perfect. And these intake barges are how we pump water out of the lake and provide drinking water to all of our visitors, our employees, and our concessionaires. Throughout the park, you'll see 2 ways that we access water. That's either through water intake barges on our lakes or through drilled wells down into our aquifers and water tables. So for these barges specifically, they're going to pump this water out of the lake all the way up hills to our water treatment plants, which then treat and distribute water throughout our developed areas. And one thing with these water systems is not only are we providing drinking water, these systems also maintain reserves and supply all of our fire protection water to the fire hydrants. So any of our emergency response teams and our fire trucks who show up there to hook up to a fire hydrant actually have water. So these barges contain pumps, valves, piping, and electrical connections. And all of this has to be adjusted and extended further out into the lake as water levels are changing. Echo Bay was just relocated this past spring. This provides us water to a lake elevation of 980 feet. And if we hadn't moved this barge, we would have lost the ability to provide drinking water when the lake level reached 1075, which with a current lake elevation of 1066, we currently would not have water at Echo Bay right now. So really exciting to be able to do this work. We did complete temporary extensions at Colville Bay, and this is going to ensure that we can provide drinking water at a lake elevation of 950. And we are in the process of designing the permanent relocation. One interesting challenge that we're also addressing with this permanent design is that as we've extended this barge further out into lake, we're seeing bigger waves, right? They're not in these little protected coves anymore. So we do have to address wave attenuators and that increased wave action and really design protection for these barges. So these are, covering the 3 projects that I really wanted to highlight for you all. And I want to leave you with this final slide that has just a little taste of everything that's going to be coming in the next 3 to 5 years. Everything from road realignments, low water crossings out at Pierce Ferry, a Pierce Ferry launch ramp extension to facilitate all of the Grand Canyon rafting exits, more repairs to the River Mountain Loop Trail, and everything under the sun. So thank you guys so much for letting me share all of this with you, and I will go ahead and turn it back to Mike.
Hey, Amy, thanks. We got 2 quick questions for you we'll tackle now. One of them, a question was about how bats might be affected when restoring the tunnel. I don't know if you know that actually, but I would assume maybe some bats do live in there, and might they be affected? Do we have a plan for that?
Absolutely. So with all of these projects, we are working in close coordination with our natural resource and cultural resource staff. And part of that is addressing things like the bats who do live in the tunnel. So currently the surveys we're doing are not invasive. They don't involve super loud noises, so they won't affect the bats. When it does come time for construction, it will be planned and timed so that it is specific to bats being elsewhere or accommodating their natural schedules and lives. So they do live there, but we will be working with it.
Great. And one easy question here, I think. They're curious with the new HVAC system, if it's air conditioning or swamp coolers. I think I know the answer, but I'll let you take it.
I don't know, Mike, you sure you don't want to take a guess? So those are packaged air conditioning units. So they have refrigerant, they're up on the roof, no evaporative swamp coolers at that location.
Well, thank you, Amy. If there's any more questions, go ahead and put them in chat. We'll take them at the end. In the interest of keeping us moving, I'm going to introduce Deputy Chief of Maintenance, Zane Johnson. I don't know if you know Zane, but he's definitely integral to keeping park roads and infrastructure issues open during particularly like floods, monsoons, the Hurricane Hillary, things of that nature. He's going to give us an update today about road repairs and rehab updates. Zane, go ahead and say hello, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike. Zane Johnson, Chief of Operations and Maintenance. So I'll just start out first, Temple Bar Road flooding. A lot of people know about these issues around the detrital wash area. The last few years has really been eating away at the road, deteriorating it. Just wanted to show you a few pictures how we are battling this until we get the projects in to repair the road properly with federal highways, which usually takes 5 to 10 years. So we have a huge amount of new equipment and tons of concrete bags to help us rebuild the shoulders now. We go to the next slide. Willow Beach Road. Everybody knows Federal Highways is going to build new road here eventually. Unfortunately, there's only about 1.5 inches of asphalt left on this road, and we're constantly repairing and patching the potholes. You will see us out there next year before spring break, fiscal year 24, and try to redo a lot of portions of this road with rollers and graders. So Willow Beach Road is going to be very busy this off season. The next picture right there on this slide, that is just normal flooding. We're always taking the heavy equipment, getting the bulk off, and then trying to get the brooms in just to make it safe for the visitors to come in and visit through the feed stations. Next slide, please. Powerline Road, Cottonwood Cove. This is a lovely journey out here in the sand. Every time it rains, we find a new wash, taking away the dirt in our road. So I think it used to be only twice a year they used to go out there. This year alone, we've been out here 6 times trying to improve this area. Once we get the Powerline Road down, then we head on down to the beaches, trying to keep it smooth. One of the future pieces of equipment that just got ordered should be here mid 24. Will help us take care of these potholes in areas, and I'll talk about that a little bit. You've seen us out as the water receded on us. We have a lot of areas of swim beach and all the beaches in the Boulder area that was never intended to see any vehicles. So we're constantly trying to plow, rebuild the berms, and I call it the black hole. You can see at the lower part of the picture, we have no idea how deep that goes, and it just swallows our equipment. So we're always on the safety lookout and ensuring that we're keeping ourselves safe and everyone around us. Next slide, please. Pierce Ferry Road improvement. Somehow this jumped. This is what we do now. It's been about 15 years since aggregate's been on this road. We have a $400,000 supply of aggregate. We have a special formula we mix with the water to try to harden this road. And we've got a hold of a few rollers to help us compact it. Once we get this project completed over the next 2 years, you will see this process in all our dirt roads. We will save money to purchase aggregate, use project money, and continue to build up all the dirt roads around Lake Mead, Lake Mojave. It is working well. It is an expensive project to use this chemical. There is a couple other alternates that we're looking at to keep dust control down, and also will harden the road for us. So it's been an adventure the last 2 years, and I look forward to continuing trying to find better technology out there to help us. Next slide, please. This is Pierce Ferry Road, what we usually encounter 4 times a year. This is the loveliness of building roads in a main wash. That's about 3 foot thick of gunk. We had 50 people stranded fiscal year 22 at the Pierce Ferry ramp coming off the Colorado River. Helicopters had to come in and save them. This was on a Sunday. We responded within an hour and a half out there and got all the equipment down there to get the boats out of there as it continued to rain. It was a great adventure. LE helped us control road issues with all the traffic. It was a great joint effort to get this open in I want to say, a reduced amount of time because of all that help. Usually once, never twice a year, we'll have a high flow coming from Lake Powell. They release a tremendous amount of extra water. We have to pull the pipe mat out of the Pierce Ferry ramp, and that's roughly 100 feet up higher than the ramp right there where the water is. And then when it's done with high flow, we usually have 4 foot thick mud on our ramp, so we have to work to clean it so that we can reinstall the pipe mats when it goes back to normal flow. Next slide, please. What's new, what's coming in the next 2 years? We got our low boy. We got our medium wheel loader. They're pictured there together in the bottom right. So we got 5 new trailers also in 23, which helps the staff move aggregate and pick up any litter and everything else from the flash floods. So what we got coming this year for 24, we got the new semi, 2 new trailers. The boat motors are big, they're finally coming. And we got a telehandler coming, which is in the bottom right or bottom middle. It's right there at the stratosphere. We spent a year testing this new product, and the telehandler will handle putting the next thing, which is the new pipe mat systems out in the water for us instead of tugging on big pipe mats. It's a military system. Proud to look outside the box and try to get something here technology wise. We can install this pipe mat in 5 minutes and reel it in 10 minutes. And instead of shutting down ramps for half a day, we're going to be able to do the work very fast. And if the water recedes way below our launch ramp's capabilities, if emergency services need to launch a boat quickly, we can actually go anywhere on the lake and drop this in for them to launch and retrieve a boat and then reel it back in so the public's not trying to use it. The Rayco Dirt Road Conditioner, it's middle right. It is actually an icebreaker, but they found out that it could be used on dirt roads to remove potholes, washboards, and everything else. So we got one of those coming for our mid-size Volvo loader. By using that instead of a grader, we will save roughly $300 per trip down a road and fuel cost alone. And it will really speed up the process of repairing any road damage. And then we can use our rollers if we need to compact behind it. The one I'm really proud of is we just got $500,000 from Region. They let us buy one of the bigger wheel loaders that any park service has, and it's going to tremendously help us move anything from boulders, anything we need to do. It's going to be a huge asset for the road crew in the future. Looking ahead, what we need to get yet are the new street brooms, the trail brooms, and obviously always looking outside the box to try to find new technology coming in. And that is it, unless there's questions.
Zane, that's great. We did have a couple questions, and I think John was able to take care of them in the chat. Actually, they were pretty straightforward. So, but thank you for showing a bit about the work that you do throughout the park and some of the new equipment that's going to help us be a little better at it moving forward too. Really good stuff. And then just want to quickly share before we move on to the next discussion. It is tough to compete for money to get this new equipment. So kudos to Zane and the facility team here for pursuing those dollars. Those were funds outside of our park from the region, and we made a business case to get them. So great job, Zane, on that. And thank you for your time. Next up, we're going to move away from projects and from roads and discuss our museum program. Many people may not understand that we actually have a museum, that we have a curatorial shop, and that we preserve and store really important artifacts. And today, the museum curator, Jessica Bitter, is going to help us and discuss the program. And Jessica, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Bitter. I am the museum curator here at Lake Mead. As Mike just mentioned, a lot of folks don't realize that most national parks actually do have a museum program. So we thought this would be a great opportunity to take you behind the scenes, talk about what that program looks like and what it can mean to you, the public. So we can start with the first slide. So I want to begin with what and why do we collect the things that we do? Anything from within park boundaries is legally the property of the federal government. There are laws around this statement. They include the Archaeological Resource Protection Act, the Paleontological Resource Protection Act, Antiquities Act, National Environmental Protection Act. We have a lot of different laws that are governing why it is that the things that come out of this park site are federal property. But not everything that is federal property is worthy of becoming a museum collection. So there are a few things that navigate exactly what ends up in our museum. One of those is a scope of collections statement. It's best practice for repositories to make sure their scope of collections don't overlap. So there are a lot of different museums and cultural institutions in Boulder City and in the greater Las Vegas area. We're trying to really make sure that our mission and what we collect represents Lake Mead, and specifically the history that's associated with Lake Mead and the foundations of this park. So that's what a scope of collection statement accomplishes. It really narrows our vision to what it is that we should be collecting. That being said, there's still a very broad scope of collections that exist within our collections as well as National Park Service collections in general. We have biology, paleontology, archaeology, history, and art collections across our collections. So it's a very broad scope, everything from biological research permits to ARPA permits, Archaeological Resource Protection Act, archaeological field school permits. These types of collections are all going to end up in our museum. So we end up with a really large research scope and a really large collection. Next slide, please. To give you a bit of an idea of just how large our collection is and what types of things we mainly have, we do have over 117,000 archaeological and historical artifacts, only 29 works of art, but 329 linear feet. If you think of a linear foot, think of a banker's box. That's what a linear foot is. That is how many archives we have in our collections. Our natural resource collection is a little bit smaller, only 15,000 biological specimens and 2,000 paleontological. We do have over 800 geological specimens as well, and these are all stored on-site in Boulder City, as well as at other selected repositories. The main ones are the Western Archaeological Conservation Center, for instance, out in Tucson, has a lot of our cultural collections. That's a National Park Service affiliated repository. We also have all of our herbarium collections at the College of Southern Nevada. So we have quite a few partners that help us manage these collections. And I meant to do this with the last slide as well. All of the pictures that are attached to these slides, if we want to go back one, they are all museum collections. So on the first slide, we had Powell's expedition camera, as well as pre-contact beads from our indigenous peoples. And so I'm sorry I didn't bring that up before. And on our second slide, we're showing off some of our pre-contact indigenous pottery, as well as it's an Nevada tiger moth. I am not a biologist, is one of the other pieces from our collections. Thank you. And we'll go to the third slide, please. One of the things I always like to emphasize about these collections, especially since we don't necessarily have a public-facing exhibit on site, is they are your collections. Our mission in the museum program across the National Park Service is the same as the National Park mission itself, which is preservation for access. We are not trying to lock these things away where no one can learn about them. We want them to be researchable. We want them to be findable to you. And so these are some of the ways that we can make things findable. And then I'll get into some of the ways that you can really interact with Lake Mead collections specifically. So we can work to make things accessible to you online. We do have virtual exhibits, the park website. We work to digitize collections. That's been more of a new effort. We're working to digitize more collections and get them available online. And the picture that we have on this slide is of an archival finding aid. This is for one of our two currently fully processed archives collection, the maps, plans, and drawings collection. And this finding aid is available on our website. A finding aid is a complete list of everything that's in an archival collection. So right down to the folder or item level, you have a complete inventory of all of those documents. So if you want to research that collection, a finding aid can help tell you exactly what is in that collection. And we do accommodate researchers in person. You can put in a research request and conduct research on site or ask us questions if they're simple enough that we can answer them remotely. We do curate exhibits off-site. We actually currently have exhibits at the Lost City Museum, for instance. So there are places where you can go view our collections in public. And we do feature ourselves in pop-up booths and interpretive programs such as Junior Ranger Day as well. So there's other ways for you to learn about us in person. Final slide, please. So here's some of the resources that we've developed during my time here in order to make sure that you have as best access to these collections as possible. If you want to interact with us virtually, we do have a new collections page as of this year that really features all of our finding aids as well as our research hours, how to get in touch with us. These are some things that we didn't have public facing before, so I'm really excited to actually be showing off how you can get in touch with us and how you can learn about these collections. We also have a virtual museum. This features pictures of a lot of our collections so that you can view things online without necessarily having to come in person. An NP gallery down at the bottom is a great way to view things online as well. This is a brand new site for Lake Mead that we've just launched, and it's where we're putting all of our digitized historic photographs. So right now there's only about one box digitized out of over 20 boxes. So you'll only see a couple hundred photos online now, but eventually as we continue to digitize historic photographs, that's going to go into the thousands. So that's an awesome effort that we've been accomplishing with volunteers so far, and we'll continue to put as much digital content up as possible so that you can see our collections more over time. If you want to see collections in person, if you want to conduct research, you can reach out to make a research appointment. Some of the most common research questions we get do have to do with our archaeological or archival collections. So we are open by appointment. If you did want to come in and research our collections in person, you can just email the email address that's on this page.
All right. Thank you so much, Jessica, for that. I think that I have to admit I was familiar that we had a collection, but I first learned about it when I saw some pictures appear in the New York Times. Just so you know, a lot of historians, students, and media do access parks for this information. So it's a really tremendous resource. It's not always what people think of when they think of a national park, but we definitely have a collection that we're proud of here at Lake Mead. And Jessica, thank you for taking some time to talk about the work. And there's other work that they do there. So we'll get Jessica back again. We're going to move on now to volunteer programs. Lake Mead has one of the most robust volunteer programs in the National Park Service, thanks to Nancy, who's going to show up here on the screen here in a second. She is our esteemed volunteer coordinator. She's going to talk about some of the work that they do and some stuff in the future. And some of you probably even know Nancy because she's got some history here, some good history here at Lake Mead. Nancy, go ahead and take the floor.
Well, thank you. If you could go to the first slide, please. Well, I'm Nancy. I'm the volunteer program manager for Lake Mead National Recreation Area, and I'm just going to provide you with a brief overview of our parks volunteer program. So if we could go to the next slide. So across the United States, 424 national park sites engage Americans by encouraging them to volunteer and become part of the National Park Service community of citizen stewards. National Park Service volunteers are known as volunteers in parks. In short, we call them VIPs. And yes, we really do believe that they are very important people. Our next slide. Lake Mead has two different types of volunteer positions. The first are individuals that come out on a regular basis to assist park staff with day-to-day operations. And then the other type are volunteers that come out for a one-time event to assist us with a project. In the following few slides, I will be sharing with you more about these two types of opportunities. So operational volunteers repeatedly come out to the park and they work alongside Lake Mead's employees to assist them with their daily tasks. They also are here to help us with meeting priority needs. As you can see from the photos on this slide, volunteers become part of the Lake Mead team. We have volunteers at our visitor centers. They serve as campground host. They monitor our park resources, assist with maintenance duties. They're out on the lake helping our law enforcement, and they also help us with administrative tasks. These are just a few of the positions volunteers help out on a day-to-day basis. One of the things we provide them with is training, as well as free access. Nope, back to the other one, please. We provide them with training, free access to the park, and in turn, they represent the park by wearing the volunteer uniform while accomplishing their duties. Our volunteer force is comprised of people of all ages, experiences, previous job skills, and desires. Next slide, please. The second type of positions are one-time volunteers. These volunteers assist the park with tasks such as litter cleanups, invasive weed removal, or collecting native seeds for our native plant nursery. Volunteers comprise of community groups, employees of local businesses, school groups, university, military groups, and families. These individuals are motivated to come out for many different reasons. We have youth that are under the age of 16. Under the age of 18. They come out to meet graduation or honor society requirements. College age students come out to gain practical experience. Scouts come out to earn badges through their service requirements, while community volunteers, what they are here to do is to help us with giving back to a cause that they support. Sometimes they come out because they want to fulfill a lifelong dream of being a volunteer ranger. Next slide. On this slide, you'll see our fall volunteer events. We kicked off the season with this past weekend with National Public Lands Day. For 30 years, Lake Mead has been involved with National Public Lands Day. We publish our schedule of public volunteer events, which you can find on our parks website, on the calendar, park social media platforms, as well as through an email mailing list. At the bottom right of the screen, you'll see a QR code that it'll take you to our website calendar where you'll see a schedule of events. Another type of opportunity is our Oz program. If we can go to the next slide, please. Operation Zero is a program that was designed to clean coves that are not accessible by roads. Anyone that is interested in going out on the park's Oz boat, all they need to do is assemble a team of 4 to 6 family members or friends, call us and see what dates are available in October, November, or March and April. We go out on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. This program is all volunteer supported. We provide the volunteers with a boat. We have operators, deckhands, and all the safety gear they need to go out and help us clean up. Many of our Oz crew members, this could be their very first time on the water to experience the park. Next slide. Some of our volunteer accomplishments for this year are volunteers have removed over 26,000 pounds of trash. They helped us water, fertilize, transplant, and maintain over 25,600 plants for 19 different restoration projects. You heard Jessica talk about 24 linear feet of documents were transferred over to the National Archives by a volunteer. And our volunteers at our visitor center, they've already greeted over 91,000 visitors and answered 8,200 phone calls. Next slide, please. Volunteers make an impact on our parks operation. Not only do they just lend a hand, they also allow us to make the fullest use of every dollar made available to us. Lake Mead volunteers so far this fiscal year have extended the Lake Mead budget by $1.48 million because of their involvement in the park's operation. Their hours equate to having 22 and a half extra staff members to help us accomplish the work. So without volunteer support, we could not accomplish as much as we do to help serve our guests. Next slide, please. We are appreciative of all our volunteers' contributions to the park operation, regardless of an individual's commitment level. Volunteers are an essential part of the National Park Service and Lake Mead's commitment to the success of our public lands. They help us each day to meet our mission. Next slide, please. If you're interested in joining the community of volunteers, here's how you can contact me to receive our park volunteer event schedule or learn more about our day-to-day operations. Just please reach out to me either by phone or email. You can also go to volunteer.gov to see about some of our open positions. And then, as I mentioned earlier, another great resource is our park website. I've attached the QR code here that will take us right to our newly developed volunteer section of our website that has all the current information about the volunteer program. In this presentation, I hope you can see that our volunteers are truly are very important people. And without them, we would not be able to accomplish everything that we already do. So thank you.
I agree, Nancy. Thank you. And that's why we wanted to share a part of this program. We'll probably be talking about volunteer projects at most of these quarterly meetings because they are important. It's a real opportunity to give back, and it also really helps us accomplish some work that we just simply would not be able to get done. And it's challenging to manage 1.5 million acres, and there's not always enough resources. So volunteers help us fill that gap a bit. I'm going to have Nancy leave the slide up 1 second, and I asked her to help me out there. You can see in the lower right, there's a picture of a boat washed up that was exposed with low water. And the reason why I asked to leave that photo there isn't that we're necessarily proud of that type of visual image of the park, but in my now 10 months here and my recent appointment as your superintendent, I've really heard from a lot of visitors and particularly partners and concessions that these visuals are really kind of unattractive and don't help the park. And I'm hoping that there's people on this call that will reach out to us after, reach out to Nancy or reach out to me directly. In the coming years, in the event the water does decline again, fingers crossed, we're going to have another great winter, by the way. But in the event water does go down, we'd like to figure out a way to start to clean these eyesores up. They really are a nuisance. They don't really create a great visual image of the park. They sort of give you the impression that the place is trashed, abandoned, that things aren't picked up. But there's a lot of them, and they are time consuming. But we believe working with volunteers and with some groups out there that we could pick away at these and pull some of these boats, which kind of become the icon of the park. And that's just really unfortunate because even at low water levels, Lake Mead's an extraordinary resource for boaters. And we don't want our visual to be abandoned boats. We really want our visual to be people having a great time on the lake. So thank you, Nancy, for including that picture. If you have ideas, I welcome you to share them with us in the coming years. If the water goes down, we may be looking for some businesses to help us because some of these boats really could just be cleaned up and we can remove some of these old buoys, old tires, old anchors for marinas, things of that nature, and help the shoreline look a little bit better. All right, moving on to our final presentation is our Chief Ranger, Trooper Snow. Trooper's going to give us a rundown of the complexity of the Resource Protection Division. The Visitor Resource Protection Division. And I'm just going to kick off by saying this year we've had 25 fatalities in the park. I don't think people are aware of the extremely complex nature of the Ranger program. Trooper's going to give us a rundown on that. He has been a Chief Ranger at other parks. He's well regarded in the region. He's called out on national incidents. So we're lucky to have him. Trooper, if you want to go ahead and present on your program operations in your Ranger Division, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, much appreciated. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to share with you a little bit just about the, as Mike mentioned, the complexities of our program, the Visitor Resource Protection Division. If we can go to the first slide, please. So what encompasses the VRP, as we call it, the Visitor Resource Protection Division, obviously our law enforcement program, or what most folks are familiar with, the Rangers, the Ranger operation, Wildland Firefighting. It also includes our dispatch program, radio programs, structural fire program, emergency medical services, search and rescue, aviation, and our boating operations. Those are the main ones. There are more, but that's just to give you an idea. That's anything that really revolves around public safety or emergency response is going to fall under this program. And some of these numbers have already been mentioned, but I thought it'd be helpful just to kind of see the complexity of the operation. So of course, 2 states, 1.5 million acres, as Superintendent mentioned, over 10 congressional districts. We also support 2 other national park units, Tule Springs and Grand Canyon Parashant. Of those areas, there are 8 semi-developed marina and or trailer village areas. So what that really looks like on any given night that we're here, it's like a small city, right? I mean, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are residing in the boundaries of Lake Mead National Recreation Area. Excuse me, that we provide the police services for, emergency services, things of that nature. To accomplish all that, we have just about 32 patrol rangers, an additional 6 administrative like myself that help run the operation, an incredible dispatch staff of only 12 full-time dispatchers that maintain a 365-day-a-year operation, 2 radio technicians, 21 wildland fire employees, which are both full-time and part-time, and then 6 other administrative support positions. We go to the next slide there. So I wanted to kind of share with you, Mike mentioned one of these earlier, just a snapshot of our data. And this is, we're looking at, again, 32 patrol rangers or officers doing so much of this work. And for, this is a snapshot of 2022, 26 fatalities, 305 arrests, 14 use of force, 19,000, almost 20,000 incidents that our rangers took care of. And some of those I just pulled out are notable. I mean, some of these, 188 DUIs that, we're getting some of the drunk drivers off the road, 211 weapons violations, 5,000 traffic incidents, almost 200 motor vehicle accidents. It's just an extraordinary work and program that we run. And I'm so proud of all of our law enforcement and dispatchers and the rest of the VRP program to take care of our visitors and our resources. So if we can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I want to highlight our Lake Mead Interagency Communication Center. So I think most folks are aware, if you've got a law enforcement operation, you have dispatch, right? So our dispatch center not only dispatches for our park, but we also dispatch for Tule Springs, Grand Canyon Parashant, Point Reyes National Seashore, which is just outside of San Francisco, the entire BLM, Nevada, Great Basin National Park. We're after hours answering service for the United States Marshals. And we also do dispatch for U.S. Forest Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We are a 911 call center. So if you're in the boundaries of Lake Mead, NRA, and you call 911, that call is routed to our dispatchers, and they are going to take the call and they're going to dispatch it to one of our staff. I will just mention that anytime you do need to call 911 or reference the number at the top of the screen there, that 293-8998, that, what I'm going to get to in just a minute, is about visitor activity. If you suspect something, you suspect a drunk driver, somebody who's boating under the influence, somebody who's dumping loads of trash, call that number. We want to make this a better place for our visitors and utilize that dispatch so we can get somebody to the best of our abilities. Keeping in mind that it's 1.5 million acres and sometimes the closest law enforcement is not close by. Go to the next slide, please. I just want to talk about a little bit about our wildland fire program. So the 3 apparatus or engines that we have, that provides a direct service for Great Basin, Mojave Fire Zone, which, pardon my acronyms there, Lake Mead, Parashant, Tule Springs, Great Basin, and Death Valley. We provide service for a national effort as well. So if there's a large type 1 fire that's burning in Montana, Wyoming, Washington, we're going to dispatch our engines to support that national effort. And of our wildland fire program, we do suppression and prescribed burns. The next slide, please. So I just briefly want to talk about some of the major challenges that my division is facing at the moment at Lake Mead. So drownings is a very frustrating reality that we deal with. And of the 25 fatalities we've already had this year, a number of those are drownings. And so many of those, the majority of those are preventable. They're totally preventable. PFDs save lives. We have life jacket loaner stations all throughout the park, and we encourage the use of those. We have most recently, 2 or 3 years ago, put a prohibition on pool floats. Pool floats, I think the name alone implies that it's not designed for a large body of water. It really is designed for a pool. A large floating unicorn might seem like a fun idea at the lake, and it gives you a false sense of security. But as soon as that deflates, as soon as the wind picks it up and blows it over 1 mile into the lake, that really is just a recipe for disaster. Water safety in general, I think, is just really paramount. We've got, alcohol is legal and people do drink. We encourage people to come to the lake, recreate, and have a great time, but do so in moderation. If you suspect that anyone is drunk or behaving inappropriately, please do call that dispatch number and report those violations. I want to talk about suicides. That's an unfortunate reality that we have probably all had some experience with in our lives, and that takes an enormous impact on our staff. So of those 32 patrol rangers, we are not only just dealing with the aftermath of the suicide that takes place at the park, but we're serving as the family liaison officer to comfort a mother, to comfort a child, and to follow that incident and that tragedy through 4 weeks at a time. And off of these 32 patrol rangers that we have, we're doing this over and over and over again with the fatalities that we see in the park. I briefly want to talk about the trash and overcapacity issues. As Nancy mentioned, we pick up tons and tons of trash, and I'm so grateful for our volunteer program that helps us do the best we can to keep this lakeshore clean. But we bring in, Zane can tell us the size of these dumpsters, but dozens of dumpsters in these areas to mitigate the trash issues. But we have hundreds of coves that are incredible. If I want to go recreate, we've got hundreds of coves that I can find an area. But when those trash bins are full, we ask all the public's assistance and not just leaving bags of trash out. Wildlife is going to get into those bags of trash, and it just creates a mess in the lake and is such an eyesore for everybody, and is just a nuisance that nobody wants to deal with. With overcapacity, we have such an incredibly beautiful resource, and some of these coves that are not the bigger areas, the bigger concession developed areas, some of the ones like on Lake Mojave, 6 Mile, 9 Mile, 8 Oak, Government Wash, all these areas, when they're overcrowded, they really prevent emergency vehicles from accessing visitors in the event of a wildland fire. We've got folks that are barbecuing, hot coals, a wildland fire starts, and there's no way to evacuate because there's so many vehicles that are packed into these areas. Lastly, I just want to once again give a nod to our dispatchers. That dispatch number, we really do encourage people to utilize that anytime they see drunk driving or inappropriate behavior that's taking place in the park. So thank you very much.
Let's go ahead and leave that last slide up, and let's go ahead and if we go back to that last slide of troopers, that'd be great. We're about to close out this meeting here. I'm sorry, can we go back to that last slide of troopers for a hot minute there? Thanks. In my 10 months here, going on 11, I've been struck actually by the sort of volume of, I kind of describe maybe misbehavior and recklessness. The truth is we have, nearly 6 million visitors. Many of them are behaving really well. They really love this lake. I've heard time and again from people who love this park. It's in their backyard. People come all the way from Southern California, from far parts of Arizona, Utah, Nevada to enjoy themselves here. Many of them do so very responsibly. So this message isn't for them. And frankly, if you're attending this meeting, you probably care a great deal too. But there are some people that don't care, and they really come here without regard for others and for the park. And, when you go to a park like Yellowstone or Yosemite or Grand Canyon, out of control nature is not tolerated as much, but they also have a lot greater control over how you access the park. We have a really unique challenge here at Lake Mead with a very porous boundary dispersed over one of the largest geographic areas in 2 states. So it makes it particularly difficult. So these problems of parking, which then lead to, as you can see in the slide lower right, lots of pop-ups next to each other. And these aren't all the same family. They're different families, they're different groups, and the behaviors spill into each other's camps. And candidly, people get upset. There starts to be unruly behavior. The alcohol starts to pour in the afternoon. The music gets turned up. People are parking their private watercraft or their boats in front of other people's camps, and fights break out. Things just get left, garbage and trash gets left, and frankly, it's just disrespectful to the other visitors and to the future visitors here. And I'd really like to figure out a way that we could do better. I think that we all deserve a family-friendly, safe park to visit, one that's admired, it is, but also feels welcoming to people, and that they could enjoy it and not worry about some of these behaviors. We don't have enough staff. We're never going to have enough staff, and 25 or 26 fatalities that we've had this year, we have the highest fatality rate in the entire Park Service. And I just think it's upon us all to do something about this. And so you're going to see our workforce start to address this in the coming years and start to change the course of this battleship, so to speak, because We deserve to have a park where not so many people die, where it's not seen as a place to commit suicide, where there isn't glass on the beach that are cutting people's feet, that there aren't people speeding with their personal watercraft in a no swim zone or in a swimming zone, where their music, the neighbor's music's blasting rock and roll and you don't like it, you don't want to listen to it. Well, we really want this to be a welcoming place. We want it to be fun. We're not buzzkills, but we also want people to understand that there is a little bit of responsibility and carefulness towards others. So that's why we want to clean up some of the boats that are left. They're not historic artifacts. They're actually things that have been abandoned. There's no way to preserve those things. We really want to clean up the park and make it look good and really welcoming so that it's around for future generations, for our kids and for our grandkids. And with that, I really want to thank you, all the attendees, for joining us. It's been an hour. I like to say that we don't make these last an hour. We're at 57 minutes and we're going to make it today. We will have another one of these meetings, likely in early January. We might make one in December, but probably in in early January, we'll have another meeting at the beginning of the year. Please join us, invite other friends, invite other partners to join us. If you have feedback for us, send it to us. If you have ideas about future topics you'd like to hear about, let us know. I want to finally thank the staff at Lake Mead. They've been tremendous. It's why I really wanted to work here and take this job. You just got to meet 6 of them today, and there's people behind the scenes that have helped pull together this meeting. We hope it's been informative. We hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you for your time, and have a great weekend, and everybody have a great fall. Take care, everyone, and see you soon.